So I begin the class again. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So as I said, I was discussing about the three types of spaces which Swamiji has introduced. Space with reference to the concept of Akasha and Prana. Two entities which explains the universe. Swamiji has generalized as Akasha, the sum total of all matter, and Prana, the sum total of all energy. So this matter and energy get converted one into the other, or also it acts upon one another, and we see the whole play of creation. So the creation is nothing but the play of this Akasha and Prana in different levels. But the levels are important. If we see Akasha, the elemental space, the space which we normally understand when we talk of physical space or elemental space, it is known as Mahakasha. So what we see, the vast sky, the vast galaxies, the vast physical universe as the scientists see, is Mahakasha, and that is acted upon by the Mahaprana, the prana, the different forces of nature, including our own psychic prana. Don't think it is something separate from the universe. The pranas which we described last time, we'll just go through the summary of what we discussed. We discussed about prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana, the five pancha pranas, and the subsidiary pranas under each prana. So we discussed about that, and we'll just have a cursory glance about it. Now, before that, I just wanted to recapitulate the concept of Mahakasha, in which normally our whole universe exists, and we think our universe exists, but we have a mental space. Everybody, every human being, or every thinking being rather, has a Chittakasha also, that is finer matter. Now, this may be a very difficult concept for Western people or for the Western philosophers or scientists to understand, where the mind as matter cannot be perceived as finer matter. Now, Sankhya and Vedanta believe that mind is nothing but finer matter. It's in a very, very subtle form. It's subject to change, it is subject to decay, just like matter is subject to transformation, decay. Our minds are also subject to various modifications or transformations, which we see in the Mahakasha. But that doesn't happen that is not perceivable by all. It happens in the Chitta Akasha. Chitta means mind, the mind stuff. Literally, if you see Patanjali's mind, the concept of mind, Chitta means the mind. So Chitta Akasha, Swamiji says, is the Akasha where our minds interact. See, just as the chemicals or just as the molecules, the atoms interact in various ways to produce this universe, there are so many reactions. We see hydrogen combining with oxygen, and then we have water, a totally different substance. Two gaseous substances, when they combine somehow, through some energy which is known as prana, the molecular energy or the atomic energy or the interatomic energy, the energies which bind together the different atoms in the universe, we get a molecule which is totally of a different nature. Hydrogen and oxygen in the H2O, when we see, we have a totally different molecule which is liquid, which can feel with the senses. So also we have solids. We have different solids which are different combinations of the different atoms as we have imagined them or as we have divided them in science. So we say the basic fundamental unit is an atom, and when atoms combine, they become molecules, and when molecules combine, they change the shape, they change the nature of that substance. So it becomes more and more gross when these finer atoms come. Atoms are not seen by the naked eye, but still we can perceive them when they are in combination and they assume different forms. So the Mahakasha is perceivable, but the finer elements of Mahakasha may not be perceivable directly, but we can use some kind of instrument, the telescope, the electron microscope, and there are so many wonderful gadgets now which can help you to measure or even perceive these substances, even far off galaxies, the radio waves, the so many different signals which we get, they are nothing but manifestations of prana or energy. They may be radioactive energy, they may be in the form of heat energy, light energy, electromagnetic energy, so gravitational energy. So there are so many energies which we are still trying to comprehend, but that everything has been classified under a space which is known as Mahakasha. Now, what about the Chittakasha, where the mind also is influenced to a certain extent by this external universe, and that is why it is also considered to be of a nature similar to the matter, the Mahakasha, but much finer. It can be perceived only by another mind. So, or the Buddhi. The Buddhi can perceive the mind because Buddhi is still finer. It is also made of a finer matter. So, mind is matter according to Vedanta or Sankhya. So, Chittakasha is also another space, the mental space as Swamiji defines it, where all our mental interactions take place. When you are angry, when somebody is angry, and in that room, you'll find the anger being transmitted by one person to another. If somebody laughs, if somebody's mind is full of joy, that joy seems to be conveyed to other people having a similar state of mind. But you might also observe that even if you are full of joy, if somebody has some deep sadness within, they may laugh, but they may not really enjoy that laughter, or they may not be full of joy, though they appear to be full of joy. So the mental states depend on the subtle elements, the subtle surroundings, or also their own constitution, the old samskaras, which are in the mental stuff, which is known as Chittakasha. Then we have, then we come to another important akasha, which is known as Chidakasha, where awareness is there. It's one of the, it is the finest aspect of the mind, the aspect of which is beyond the mind. It is higher than the mind or beyond the mind, which perceives the things just as you can imagine a movie being projected on a screen. Suppose you remove the screen is a substratum for the movie to be projected. You cannot imagine a movie to be seen or a picture to be seen if there is no background. You may project it through the projector, but if you remove the screen in the space, you can't see it. So we need a screen, a substratum, and that substratum is nothing but the pure consciousness, which is known as Chidakasha. So that is the plane in which we perceive things. So not that we are living in three different planes. We are living in uh, all the three planes. Not that we live only in Chidakasha or Chittakasha or Mahakasha. All the three spaces are, uh, you may say, subsets of the same Akasha. But the problem is we cannot perceive the higher spaces without the help of Raj Yoga or yoga or any spiritual practices. Spiritual practices are meant to raise your mind from the Mahakasha and study the Chittakasha, study the different aspects of the mind and go deeper. Don't just stop there. It's not psychology that you just study the different states of the mind. That is one aspect of the study of Raj Yoga. But you have to go still further and try to reach the Chidakasha. The moment you touch the Chidakasha, you touch the Purusha, you touch the Brahman or the Atma, then you really live in a very high state of existence. And finally, when you are able to totally disassociate yourself with the body and the mind, the Mahakasha and the Chittakasha, the mental space, then you transcend it and then you become one with the Chidakasha, which is known as Mukti. So that is what Swamiji says, that union with the Purusha, or to rise above Prakriti. Prakriti is made up of this lower to Mahakasha and Chittakasha. The whole play of Prakriti as the creation we see it, thus the creation as we see it, is confined to these two spaces. But we have to raise our mind using, of course, the uh, power of self-reflective power which human mind has. And mind you, it is only in a human body that we have this self-reflexive capacity which enables us to focus on itself, to focus backward. Now that is what we say. And the person who does this makes use of a particular force in the human psyche, which is known as Kundalini. We discussed that. We discussed the different pranas. I don't want to discuss it again. Prana, Apana, Samana, Vyana, and Udana. And then we discussed the other five Upapranas, the subsidiary pranas, the Naga, which causes vomiting, Kurma, which opens the eyelids, which Krikala, which creates hunger, Devadatta, which produces yawning. There are certain actions of the human body which are controlled by the smaller pranas, upapranas. Dhananjaya, which nourishes the body. And then we discussed about three koshas. These are very important. The Vijnanamaya kosha, which gives rise to Jnana Shakti. The Manomaya kosha, which gives rise to Ichcha Shakti. And Pranamaya kosha, which gives rise to Kriya Shakti. So we want the power to work, the Kriya Shakti, which comes from Pranamaya kosha, which makes our body active, which creates in us a desire to work out our karma through Kriya Shakti. When we manipulate this Pranamaya kosha, that's why we begin the yoga with pranayama, with asana, yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama, the first four steps. So pranayama Swamiji is insisting upon because that helps us to invigorate our Kriya Shakti. So without Kriya Shakti, we can't work out our karma. We may think that we are working out our karma. Even japa is a kind of Kriya. When we do the japa, when we do our prayers, it's not just a combination of Jnana Shakti or Ichcha Shakti. It's a combination of Kriya Shakti. We have to mentally repeat the mantra again and again, make some effort. That is Kriya. So repeating japa, repeating prayer, even meditation, a kind of Kriya Shakti is required. And when we use the Manomaya kosha, when we rise to the Manomaya kosha, the Ichcha Shakti, when we develop the Manomaya kosha, we say he has a very strong willpower, Ichcha Shakti. So a strong willpower means a strong mind. So they are almost the same thing. When we say he is of a strong mind, the person is of a strong mind, that means he has a very strong Ichcha Shakti. So strong Kriya Shakti by control of prana, a strong Ichcha Shakti by control of the mind, and strong Jnana Shakti, the power of wisdom, the power of true understanding of life and its functions. That is possible only through Jnana Shakti. Now, this Jnana Shakti is not a function of the mind. We think understanding things, understanding mathematics, understanding physics, understanding chemistry is Jnana Shakti. No. These are just bits of information which we do. They still come under they are some kind of knowledge, but they are secular knowledge. They are not the real knowledge. The Jnana Shakti which is referred to here comes when we enlighten ourselves, when the buddhi gets awakened. When we see things, when we use our reflexive capacity, the reflexive capacity of the mind, which is turned inward. And when that happens, you will find the real Jnana Shakti. You understand the world in its true perspective. And then that gives you the wisdom to do what helps you to develop Kriya Shakti, Ichcha Shakti, and to concentrate your mind, to control the different functions of the mind, to control the sense organs, to control the body, to control so many things. And by this self-control and then reflecting upon oneself, one develops one goes to the level of Vijnanamaya kosha, and the Jnana Shakti develops there. So a complete personality begins with Kriya Shakti, he continues with Kriya Shakti, and when he develops his mind simultaneously, it's not that we develop the prana first, then we develop the Ichcha Shakti afterwards, Jnana Shakti last. It's not like that. Simultaneously, all the three powers which every human being possesses, he has to use them and develop them so that uh, he can follow the path of yoga, Ashtanga yoga. And from pranayama, the other steps control of the mind begin. From the fifth step onwards, when we do pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and then finally, when we reach the final level, that is the Chidakasha, when we even transcend the Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha, we reach a state where we come in contact with our own magnificent self, which Vedanta calls the Brahman, and Sankhya or Yoga school, they call it the Purusha. So that is the goal of life, goal of every life. In fact, God realization, when we say, when Sri Ramakrishna said that God realization is the only goal of human life, what he meant was that when we use this power of yoga, all the four yogas, Karma Yoga using Kriya Shakti, then we're using Ichha Shakti, and all the different yogas when we use, including Jnana Yoga, when we use the four yogas directly or indirectly, what we actually do is raise ourselves, our consciousness from the lower levels to the higher levels, and finally we reach the ultimate consciousness or the Purusha. And we are no longer under the grip of Prakriti, which is making us joyful at one moment, miserable at another moment. So, this fluctuation, this misery which we experience in this transformatory world, or the world which everything is transforming. So, the goal in Vedanta or goal in yoga is only one, to hold on to that which does not change, the Brahman or the pure consciousness, which does not transform, like the Akasha, combination of Akasha and Prana, which we see in the Chidakasha, in the Mahakasha, in the Chittakasha, which is also changing, the fluctuations of the mind, and also the awareness, which also keeps on changing. It's not that awareness is pure. Our awareness is mixed with many awareness. We are aware of the body, we are aware of the mind, we are aware of so many sense organs. So all these awarenesses, they are bits of awarenesses. They are reflections of the pure awareness. We have not reached the original awareness. It is like the sun shining on the different objects. It may shine in a small bowl of water, and we may see the reflection of that sun, but it is not the sun. And if we take that awareness to be the real awareness, then we are mistaken. So that is why in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, it is no doubt we see things in a different light. We see the bright Purusha or bright Brahman shining through all these objects, but at the same time, we are not aware of the pure shining nature, the self-illuminating nature of the Atman or Brahman. Till that happens, we don't get Mukti or Nirvana. So that is the goal of all yoga. And the way through it is through, Swamiji has brought the concept of Kundalini. And as we saw, these five pranas, we have to deal with these five pranas. I explained the nature of the five pranas, what it does. I'm not going to repeat it. Prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. Prana is the principle which is operative in the body as a whole, but it has a specific function which leads to breathing. So the apana functions below the heart, the breathing and the heartbeat and all those things. Apana functions below the heart down to the navel and helps elimination or the ejection of unnecessary material from our body. Samana helps is located in the stomach. It digests and assimilates food and drink. Without that, we cannot get the energy to do any kind of work. So samana is the equalizes the prana throughout the body. It sees that the energy which we get by consuming food and drinks and whatever we consume, the ahara we get through the eyes, through the other organs also, not just the mouth. It sees that the samana vayu helps in digesting and assimilating that food and sending it to every corner of the body, which nourishes it. So that is why it is known as samana. Then vyana is because it operates on the nervous system. the entire nervous system, which is very subtle, very important to the body. It is important for the utterances of speech, the effort which we do, the sudden energy which we feel, and we try to get some rajasic energy and we do different actions, waiting lift, jumping over the fence, performing athletics, all that is because of the Vyana Vayu. So the nervous energy has to be very strong. That's why Swamiji said muscles of iron and nerves of steel. When he said muscles of iron means we want a strong body and a strong mind and a strong nerves also. Because even if the mind is strong, but if the Vyana Vayu or the prana which is responsible for conducting the nervous current in our body, if it is not strong, then we can't bear the spiritual experiences. That's why Thakur used to say that to bear the spiritual experiences, when the Kundalini rises through the different chakras, so many spiritual experiences come. But if the Vyana Vayu or the nervous system is not fit to take up, absorb that energy, then it becomes difficult. So it has to be very strong. It's not that the pranayama, through pranayama, we just strengthen the breath. We strengthen the breath, we strengthen our circulation in the body of the blood. We also have to strengthen the nervous system. We have to strengthen our digestion. So all the different forces, the psychic prana, the different pranas are responsible for different functions. So Vyana, and finally we come to the Udana, which promotes growth in all growth, the growth right from a baby to an adult. That is because of Udana. And also, as I said, that is the only Vayu which leaves the body when we cast off our body and take up another body. This is a very important concept. This Vyana, this Udana Vayu is the one which connects us to the universal prana. And it is still that prana still lives in a rudimentary state with all our samskaras. And the subtle Sukshma Sharira leaves the body when the time comes for the body to be cast off. The Annamaya Kosha goes away and all the other four pranas, because we don't have use for the other pranas. We don't have use for prana because there is no breathing, no lungs functioning. So we don't need, till we get another lung, another body, another circulatory system, we don't need the pranavayu. So pranavayu, Vyanavayu, we don't have a nervous system, we don't have samana, we don't have apana. All the four pranas become redundant. But only udana, they say, conveys the soul in passing out of the body. When the soul, they say, the subtle body passes out, it is the udana vayu which leaves. So in Thakur Samadhi, that was the udana vayu which was retained by him just near the top of the head, and the Ayurvedic doctor who treated him could make out that he has not left the body because he could feel some kind of heat, even though Thakur's other four pranas were totally merged and he showed no external signs. That is what samadhi is. So when he entered into the lower forms of samadhi, including the nirvikalpa samadhi, but because of his because he was an avatara, some special people have the capacity to come back and animate the body, the same body which they have left, which is very rare. Normally, when it goes out, the Udana Vayu with the soul leaves the body permanently. So that did not happen when Sri Ramakrishna went into several states of samadhi, different bhava samadhis. He could come back to the normal state, and all the other vayus started functioning, all the other pranas started functioning. So that is the
Thank
five.
you.
That is the five. So this is what we have to remember now. Now the how to control the psychic prana. So we came to the end of that. Prana exists according to some of the Upanishads. Prana exists at the very inception of the organism. So when we see a child is born, when an organism comes into existence, prana exists. This is what Upanishad says. Without prana, he cannot function. That is what distinguishes The psychic prana, I'm not talking of the universal prana, I'm talking of the psychic prana, which animates a living being and distinguishes it from the dead person. The dead body doesn't have this prana, that's why it's not animated anymore. So it is the oldest and the greatest. This prana exists at the very inception of the organism. Other than prana is the knowing self, the ruler within. Now, the prana and the associate Annamaya koshas and all the different koshas are separate from the knowing self, the pure awareness, the pure consciousness, which is the Purusha or the Brahman of the Vedanta. Now, that is something which is unchanging, like the screen, which projects all the different images. So to get that unitary experience, the world as we see it, it is possible only because of this witness self, the knowing self, the ruler within. And one can be totally free one if one identifies with the ruler within and not with the things outside. If we run after the awareness which is reflected, it is like trying to understand where the sun is, but being satisfied with the reflection in the water. We see the reflection in the mirror. There's a beautiful incident where symbolically Swami Turiyananji is trying to explain, or maybe he says, when Swamiji was with us, he was like that blazing sun. We didn't realize. But we did not see Swamiji in his real nature. We just saw the reflection of Swamiji, like the moon. He gave the example of the moon, not the sun. He says the moon was shining in the firmament in the sky, and we saw the reflection of the moon, which appeared as Swami Vivekananda's body. That's a beautiful idea which Turiyananji gave. And he said we were ordinary souls. We did not realize this great Brahmagani, who was one with Brahman even before he was born. He was not born because of karma, like Thakur. So he says, Turiyananji says, we played with that reflection in the moon, in the pond. We played with the reflection, thinking that is the real moon. And for us, that was Swamiji. We just saw his reflection. And we interacted with him just like one of us. And we thought he was just one of us, but we didn't realize that he was already identified with the real moon, which is far off. And when he took Mahasamadhi, when he passed away, Suryananji felt that we were playing with this reflected moon, not the real moon. We could never understand the greatness and significance of Swami Vivekananda. Unfortunately, we just saw the reflection. The reflected moon which we saw was what we thought Swamiji really was, but it was just a reflection. So also the jiva, every jiva looks upon this universe or considers the universe as real by seeing the reflection of Brahman. The self within reflects itself in various ways. It reflects itself as gross matter, it reflects itself as money, which makes us the shine of gold coins, the shine of wealth, the shine of property. It shines in different ways. It shines as so many other worldly things, after which we run, thinking it to be real. But when that vanishes, we try to hold on to higher things, which are more permanent. When we even can't hold on to that, we go to still higher things. And slowly, through the process of yoga, we see the shine in higher and higher objects. We try to see the shine in intellectuality, in the mind. And then we see that reflection, higher reflection in the buddhi. And then we get some wisdom and we live our life wisely, not like animals or not like gross human beings. Because we are seeing a better reflection now. The reflection which we saw in muddy water, now we are seeing a clearer reflection in a better water, in a clear water, because our mind is pure now. The mind is clear. And the higher we go, the reflection becomes higher and higher. Then we try to understand where is the original source. These are all reflections. And then we go inward, then we start our spiritual journey. And with the help of the sadhana, with the help of the mantra, try to see the real sun, not the reflection or the consciousness. And when we become one with that, then we understand that we were chasing the reflection of the moon or the sun all the while. We never had access to the real moon. So when we see nature, when we see Purusha, then this nature loses its charms. We may see the nature, we may see the Prakriti, but we see it only as a reflected light. So that beautiful example was given by Swami Vivekananda, where he said that when he was walking in Gujarat, in the deserts of Gujarat in Rajasthan, he used to see that mirage. The mirage appears as a layer of water on sand. Though it is just sand, the heat of the air and the layer which is formed near the sand it gives it an appearance of a water body. So he went after that thinking that is water to quench his thirst. But when he went near, he found that there was no water, there was only sand. So it is like that. We see the mirage, we see the reflection. But once we understand, once we have the full knowledge and we understand what is real water and what is the reflection, then the reflection does not cheat us. We see the world, we interact with the world, but the world does not catch us, the world does not enslave us, the world does not bind us. That is the idea of Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti means we see the world, we interact with the world like Thakur did, like Swamiji did, but they were Nitya Muktas. They were free people, just come here to play. All the while they knew that they are playing with the mirage, but they still played. And when their roles were over, when their job was over, they go back to the source from which they came. So this is what the Upanishad says, that prana is the knowing self. Prana is not the knowing. Prana is the one thing which manifests itself in different ways in the universe and in our own body and in this Mahakasha and Chittakasha and Chidakasha, but they just make the play appear real to us. But beyond that, other than the prana is the knowing self, the ruler within. Now how to control this prana? The next chapter is control of the psychic prana. Till now, Swamiji has explained to us the whole chapter was about what this prana is, what it does. Now, how to control it? We got a very clear theoretical idea about what this prana is, how it functions, how important it is for our spiritual progress. But now, how to control this prana? The control of the psychic prana is the next topic on which Swamiji discusses in his Raj Yoga. Now he says we have to now deal with the exercises in pranayama, the different breathing exercises. So he gives one or two very, very simple breathing exercises which are safe and which can be practiced by others. About other higher forms of pranayama, Swamiji is giving us a warning that it should not be done without the guidance of a pranayama expert or a yoga expert. Because if we do it by watching videos or by reading books, it can be fatal if we don't do it and if we don't know how it really is to be done. Because however much we try to understand this breathing exercises through the media, through books, there is some gap, and an expert only or an expert yogi who knows everything about pranayama can teach you. But two forms of pranayama which Swamiji has suggested are very safe and can be done by anybody because it does not require any supervision by any guru. So that's why he says for a vast majority or for everybody, there are some basic concepts of pranayama which one has to learn. Now he explains how breathing controls the other things in which results in real pranayama. Breathing is the first step in pranayama, but regular and rhythmic breathing, directly or indirectly. I say directly or indirectly because when you say direct pranayama, that means you do it as a breathing exercise. You don't have a guru, you don't have a mantra, you don't have any other sort of sadhana, and you are depending only on yoga, the Raj Yoga, then because you don't believe in any Ishta, you don't believe in any God, you don't believe in any mantra. For such a rational person who just believes that he can practice pranayama and go to higher steps, it is possible. Raj Yoga is meant for it is a scientific process which takes you to the highest, gives you the highest realization, provided you follow it as it is should be practiced. But the indirect pranayama, which results as a result of repetition of japa, of any systematic breathing which is induced by our different sadhanas, by bhakti yoga, by singing, by uh, rhythmic repetition of the mantra also, which is according to Holy Mother Sharda Devi. She says it's the best way to do pranayama. You don't have to put any effort to do pranayama. If you do the japa properly, then your pranayama takes place indirectly, but as efficiently as you do it directly. So now Swamiji is trying to explain to people who take Raj Yoga as a separate science, or who have no other means, who don't have faith, who don't have a guru, don't have mantra, who have no other sadhana except the science of yoga. So he says the first step, according to the yogis, according to the Raj Yogis, is to control the motion of the lungs. Now, lungs play such an important part in our breathing that any breathing or any breath control can be made possible only by controlling the movement of the lungs. In short, the way you train your nervous system to inflate or to deflate the lungs, which gives rise to breath. So actually you think that you are controlling the breath. You are actually controlling the lungs. So the motion of the lungs has to be controlled with some effort of the mind. You have to imagine that the lungs are moving in a particular way. You have to just tell your nervous system, give it instruction. Now we are breathing randomly. We are all breathing randomly. We don't take it has become automatic with us. We just don't think about breathing. But the moment you use your Vyana Vayu and the Prana Vayu, you tell your nervous system, and it gives signals to the lungs to breathe, to contract and expand in a particular way. When you do that voluntarily, with effort, you actually do pranayama. That's the simple explanation of pranayama. To control the motion of the lungs by controlling the nervous energy, the Vyana Vayu, and also the Prana Vayu ultimately. So what we want to do is feel the inner motions that are going in the body. The inner motions means the nerve currents. Right now we don't feel it, though it is going on. Unconsciously or subconsciously, your body is breathing, even if you are not aware of it. Even when you sleep, the breathing goes on non-stop. You breathe in a particular way. Everybody has his own breathing pattern. Some people breathe heavily, some people breathe slowly, depending on their mind, depending on their nature. The breathing is not the same with all. In fact, you see, there is a study made which says the slower you breathe, the more calmer you are, the more longer you live. It's a secret which you can see in the animal world. You see the breathing patterns of the different animals. Dogs who live for say 14 to 20 or 22 years at the most, the moment you see them breathing, they seem to be breathing always running short of breath, even when they are normal. Even when they are normally sitting, they have a sense of motion of the lungs which is very fast. So they breathe heavily, they breathe fast. That is why it consumes a lot of energy and they die young. So the faster the breath, the shorter the life. And that can be applied to human beings also. So the idea behind pranayama is not just to raise the kundalini, but those who use it as a tool in hatha yoga also believe that it can extend your life if there are no other diseases. If you are free from other diseases, then the slower you breathe, logically speaking, you live longer. So a man who does pranayama, according to the hatha yogis, will live longer because he is using less oxygen. You may see in other animals like elephant, like tortoise, which has a very slow breathing rate, very slow. The breathing per minute, the breaths per minute is very less. The longer they live, some tortoises live for 200 years. The tortoise which Swami Vivekananda saw in Alipur Zoo, they say died in 2004. Swamiji went with Ranada Babu, who was a geologist, who was in charge of that zoo, and he was a botanist and a zoologist as well, qualified. So he was talking about evolution. So Swamiji came in. Swamiji saw a huge uh, tortoise which survived not only Swamiji but till 2004. Practically, it lived for more than 200 years. So that tortoise was the one who died in 2000. That tortoise died. So tortoises, the elephants, and some other animals who have a long life, uh, it's inversely proportional to the breath. If they breathe faster, they die. It's directly proportional to their breath. If they breathe faster, they die younger. So the motion of the lungs, now it is not under our control. So Swamiji says you deliberately slow it down or you breathe rhythmically. Don't breathe haphazardly. Another one is the length of the breath. Second is the sequence and the control of the breath. How long you should breathe in, how long you should breathe out. So that rhythm not only controls the prana, but controls the other vayus also. The samana, the vyana, the udana, and all the other vayus. They are apana. Everything is controlled. That's why they say pranayama mostly is used in hatha yoga for good health. Because when all your pranas are under your control and when they are harmonious, when they are systematic, you will see that they result in good health of the body. But apart from that, pranayama, the main use of pranayama is to take your consciousness to the mental plane, to increase your kriya shakti, to increase your ichha shakti by controlling the mind and go further, touch the Vijnanamay kosha and go further. So that is the real purpose of pranayama, not just good health. Good health is one of the byproducts or the effects of pranayama, but it's not the goal of pranayama. Now, Swamiji says, how can we control this motion of the lungs? We just can't tell the lungs now you breathe. We have to make effort. And that effort is done by controlling the nerve currents. Swamiji says, our minds have become externalized. Our minds have become so gross. We are so busy with things outside, with our money, with our property, with so many things outside that we have lost the faculty of using our mind to observe our nerve currents. How many of us spend even 5 minutes to see how we breathe, how this wonderful mechanism of the body works? We may have 24 hours in per day, but we hardly use 5 minutes, just 15 minutes, or maybe maximum half an hour to somehow do our japa, to do our spiritual practices, or even to do pranayama or anything. We have so little time for ourselves. So Swamiji says our minds have become so externalized. We are using it for so many gross things, the world outside, that the mind has lost the capacity to observe the fine motions inside the body. And without observing or without controlling the Vyana Vayu or the nervous current, we cannot even start the fourth step, that is pranayama. Pranayama doesn't begin. What to speak of the higher states of meditation? That will never come to us if we don't have some control over the prana. Whether you do it through yoga, whether you do it through japa, the more time you spend, the more moment you start doing japa, you observe your mind, you become internalized, you don't become externalized. You become internalized, you tend to see the observe, you tend to observe the fluctuations of your mind, the disturbances in your mind, the various energies which are causing, and then you find a deep sense of joy. You just sit for half an hour, do meditation, and see. You seem to be totally in control of yourself. What is the reason? Because you are controlling your prana. You may not intend it, but the moment you do japa, the moment you do prayer properly, a prana, a automatic pranayama starts happening. And when that happens, the body feels elated, the body feels some kind of joy, provided you do it correctly. It's not that any kind of japa done for the sake of doing will not help. It should result in a kind of pranayama. And it should result in you observing the different mental states. You should be able to observe what is happening. Why am I thinking the way I am thinking? Why am I getting restless? Why am I getting angry? Why am I not able to get along well with people? Why are so many problems happening in the external world? The problem is in the internal world. The problem can be solved only through internalizing and finding the subtle, fine motions which are going on in our nervous system, which give rise to our external actions, external moods, external behaviors, external depressions, external happiness, joy, bliss. Everything is dependent on the movement of the nervous current. So Swamiji says, if we can begin to feel this nerve currents by pranayama or any other sadhana, when I say any other sadhana, I mean not Raj Yoga, any other yoga which leads to pranayama. Whether you do pranayama with deliberately or directly or indirectly by any other sadhana, pranayama has to happen. That is the scientific process. And you can feel the thoughts, you can feel the mind, you can feel the nervous currents, everything can be felt by the yogi. These nerve currents go all over the body. It's not that you control the nerve currents which control the lungs. You begin with the lungs, but they are not everything. Lungs are the starting point. You control the nerve currents which control the lungs. Then it goes to other parts of the body. It helps you to control samana vayu, which results in good digestion. It helps you to control the udana vayu, the other which controls the temperature, which controls your energy levels. Then vyana vayu, samana vayu, all the different pranas are controlled. So these currents go all over the body, the Vyana Vayu, and bring life and vitality to every muscle. But we do not feel them because we have become so insensitive. We just use our organ. We just use our organs. We use our muscles. We do exercises, do everything fine. We are controlling, but we are not doing it consciously. We're not doing it. We just do it mechanically. We want to build up our body. We want to do some exercises. We know it is good, but we don't know how it is controlling our prana and helping us to become fitter. We just know by walking, our prana is being controlled. By doing yoga, our prana is being controlled. The yogasanas, I mean, by doing pranayama, we can control. There are so many ways of leading a harmonious life. But all we are doing is controlling the prana and controlling the nervous currents, which help our body to function, help our mind to function, help our spirituality and spiritual growth as well. Now it depends on for what purpose we use this control. By taking up and controlling the motion of the lungs, when we have done it for a sufficiently long time, this pranayama, we shall be able to control the external final motions. Now, this is what pranayama is. So we have almost completed 1 hour now. There are exercises in pranayama. We'll come to that in the next class. We'll have a few question answers. I'm sorry we began the class a little late because everybody was not there. Now there are about 58 people. This is the maximum. But when I saw at 4:30, there were hardly 35 people. So I had to wait. People had to join so that they don't miss out anything. But in any case, if you miss out, we are trying to put these talks, the recorded talks, and put them on Facebook, my Facebook account, which is Swami Sarvasthananda, or ultimately we will try to put it on YouTube as well, so that you can see the previous classes. Otherwise, if there is no connectivity, I tend to repeat many things. I do it because many people are new to this class, and you have to repeat it again and again so that there is a sense of continuity, which may not be necessary if I put it on other media. So I would now request, now before we uh, take up the questions, I'll just remind you that in the next class, please try to be a bit punctual. The moment I see the people are over 50, then I'll start the meeting, because that's the normal 57 to 70. On Saturdays and Sundays, it goes up to 80. But till it is 50, I would just wait. Maybe the people who log in earlier will have to wait for that. But I would request you to kindly try and join on time. But if I get your messages, I can even start it at 5 o'clock. At 4:30 is too early. So now we can have some questions. Yeah, you can unmute yourself. Yes. If there are questions, you can ask.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Yes.
What would be, you said half an hour. Would that be the recommended time to sit in meditation to get?
There's no there is no limit at all. Don't say half an hour or 15 minutes. It all depends on the individual, and also the intensity, and also the capacity. There are three things. You may have the enthusiasm and you may have the time, and you may suddenly try to do it for 3 hours also. But that is not a good idea. Gradually increase. Half an hour or 15 minutes or even 5 minutes, that all depends on the individual, what kind of progress he wants to make, what kind of capacity he has, what is his purpose. So there are so many things. See, people spend hours and hours to build up their body. Do they ask, I do 15 minutes or half an hour? If they go to the gym, some people work in the gym for hours. They never bother, never complain. But only when it comes to meditation and dealing with one's mind, we try to find out whether we should do for half an hour. There's no limit. The more you do, the better. But it has to be gradual. So,
And Swamiji, to control, I'm sorry, to make it effective, is it a good idea to, when you breathe in, you chant one, when you hold, you chant one, and when you breathe out, you chant one? Would you recommend that?
are all aids to which help you to do pranayama. There is no hard and fast rule. When we discuss this in the next class, let us follow Swamiji's ideas on pranayama. He has given some techniques, and there you will know what you have to do, how you have to repeat the mantra with that, or om with that, and how the sequence should be. Everything will be discussed at that time.
Okay. Thank you,
Now,
Swamiji.
there are specific, see, it depends on the person, depends on what sadhana you are doing.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji.
Hello, anybody else?
Yeah, Pranam.
Namaste.
Yeah, Pranam, Swami.
Yes, please carry on.
Okay, Swamiji, what is the right way of doing japa?
What is the right?
Way of doing japa?
Or right way of doing japa? If you are initiated, I told you, you have to ask your guru. You see, the right way is the way in which the guru has given you instructions. There are different methods. There may be slight variation. So it is better to consult your own guru and follow the instructions for a formal practice of japa, I am saying. You got my point?
Okay, Swami.
So because those instructions are very valuable, and you should not deviate a single inch because it has come down in a tradition. So if you
Right.
have already had mantra diksha by someone who is who belongs to a tradition, as you said you had last time,
Yes, sir.
Chaitanya Swami Sarvasthananda, for example.
Yes.
So it would be nice if you can refer to the booklet or the instructions he has given
Okay.
and strictly follow those instructions. That is what we expect because the instructions have been prepared after knowing the capacity and also the not only the capacity, the tradition in which this particular mantra sadhana or japa is to be done. The tradition is important, from whom it has come, how it has come, who was the original initiator of this mantra and the sadhana, and how the japa is to be done, how the meditation is to be done after japa. These are different stages. And
Yes.
if you read the booklet, or if you read the instructions, or if you can ask your guru for instructions, he would have given you at the time of initiation, or maybe you can ask him now if there are any doubts. But you have to follow exactly the same procedure as it may be slightly different from person to person, you know.
Yes,
So
sir.
every teacher has his own technique or some specific instructions. Most of them are same. We have to do the same thing. The common instructions for pranayama or which Swamiji gives in the, I will explain in the next class. Okay?
Okay.
They are about pranayama, not about japa.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay. Namaste. Anybody else? Yeah. So shall I take your leave if there is?
Swamiji,
Yes.
Pranam Swamiji, can I ask?
Yes. Who is asking? Please.
Niti.
Oh, Niti. Yes. Please carry on.
Swamiji, I had questions from last time also, but my audio had some issues, so I couldn't ask. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Sure.
Last Raj Yoga class?
Yes, Swamiji.
Yes. Please carry on. I repeated almost the same thing. Just gave an overview of what I discussed last time. Anyway, please carry on.
Yes, Swamiji. So, my first question is the total amount of prana same? I mean, you discussed about different pranas. So when you say you want to energize one prana or work on it to increase its efficacy, do you mean to say that the total amount of prana in a person can increase? Or
Yes.
it?
Yeah, definitely. See, the prana in a particular person or a personality has means you have to access that pranic energy from the universe. So as much as you can, in fact, we are very using our resources so scarcely that we are not making full use of the prana which is available to us in the whole universe. So there is no limit to that. Swamiji says, na, great prophets, they had so much control over their prana and the universal prana that they could move thousands and thousands of people. How does it happen? How does Sri Ramakrishna's words have so much power? Because not because of, it's only because of the prana they manifest. So there is no limit. It's not, sum total can never be. What prana we have now is a small portion of the universal prana. So we can, whenever Kundalini rises, in fact, what happens is we get more and more access to this universal prana. And the more we tap into those resources, the more strong we become, the better we become, and the stronger we become. So definitely it is not, sum totally cannot be same. It definitely is not the same. Only thing is the quantity may vary. Prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. They keep on changing the proportion. You can keep the proportion. For example, when Thakur went into samadhi, his body, the doctor who was there, saw that there was no breathing. There was no sign of any breathing. There was no sign of heartbeat. It was almost like a dead body. When Thakur used to go to Samadhi, he was shocked. The doctor said, how can a body survive? Because the pranas almost were not there. He had gone above the level of prana. That is the goal. Actually, control of prana is not the goal. We control it so that we can transcend that level of prana. So definitely the prana will be there in the body in different proportions, and it will change according to your needs. Okay?
Okay, so it's not one that is getting transferred to the other, but we are tapping directly to the universal prana.
Yes.
And overall, all the pranas are getting
Oh,
nourished.
no, they are getting converted also. It is just like electromagnetic forces getting converted into mechanical forces. There are so many interactions between the universal forces also. To give you an example of the Mahakasha or the elemental space, you see the heat gets converted, it becomes condensed and it becomes cold. So the heat energy changes and transforms itself into something else. So matter and energy also interchange. So also our mind and the prana and the akasha, they interact upon each other in our body also, and they can change. Prana can be transformed into vyana, udana, into each other, transform into udana. Uh, they can tap into the universal source of prana and become strong and get access to the inexhaustible source. In fact, the prana of all the beings, prana of Thakur, prana of Ma, Swamiji, I mean the prana that they manifest is open for access to all of us. And everybody who is controlling his or her prana is influencing the prana of others. So in the same house or the same vicinity, you find the vibrations. When you say vibrations, it is nothing but the prana and the mental thoughts which is influenced by this prana, which are nothing but matter. They also interact. It's a very complex organism, this human body, and it interacts in different ways. So it's highly flexible. It can get a prana from outside, it can get akasha from outside, just as we eat many things, put it in our body, it becomes part of our body. It was part of the universe earlier. Now it has become part of your body. And it gets assimilated, converts into prana. So akasha and prana are interchangeable in outer space, in inside the body also. So the whole interaction, play of mass and energy, or akasha and prana. Okay? Am I clear?
Yes, Swami. So when you gave an example last time of Latu Maharaj, that he had prayed for a strong digestion, Saman Prana,
Yes.
it's also affecting how you meditate and other
Yes.
pranas in a way.
Yes.
So that means we are trying to nourish all of them to get.
Yes. He wanted a strong digestion because when he sat for sadhana, if the samana vayu got disturbed, for example, it will affect the other vayus also, the other pranas also. So perhaps he cannot concentrate, his mind will get disturbed because prana has an effect on the mind only, mind also, not just the body. So wrong digestion or something wrong with your digestion, something wrong with your breathing, something wrong with any of the temperature, Udana Vayu, something wrong with Udana also will affect the body to some extent. It will affect everything. So that's why his problem was digestion. So because he had to eat all sorts of food. When you start begging food, he had to beg food. So sometimes the food is good, sometimes the food is not good. You can't have a choice. So unless you have a strong digestive power, he prayed for that because his Samanavayu or his digestion would affect his mind, his meditation, his everything. So that's why he prayed for that. So it is interchangeable. It is also depending on food. It is depending on ahara, the inputs which you give. So whatever we give, even the eyes and the ears and the nose, whatever inputs you give, not just the food, it impacts your nervous system. And your Vyanavayu may be disturbed. You see a horror movie, you see something which disturbs your nerves, then it will affect your body, it will affect your other Vayus also, your other Pranas also. So it's all connected. It's not just dealing with one prana, just breathing, but dealing with all the pranas simultaneously. Okay?
Yes, Swamiji. One more question from the last lecture. You had said about the Apanvayu carrying the Pretatma to the next body.
No,
And
Udana.
Udanvayu carrying the. So,
Yes.
and you said that time can be a variable, how long it has to wait for the next body.
Yeah, for the subtle body to be born again. Yes.
Is that time dependent on something?
On your karma and the availability also. There are so many factors, When you do manufacturing, it depends on the raw materials, it depends on the energy available, it depends on the manpower available. So in God's creation also, your karma uh, may be suitable for a particular body which may not be easily available. So when the right things are available, the prana gets a chance. I mean, the subtle sukshma pretatma or the sukshma sharira gets a chance to occupy a body where it can nicely or where it can best work out its karma. So to work out the karma, you need a body which is suitable for your sukshma sharira, isn't it? So there is no time limit and there is no place limit also. Place choice also. You can be born anywhere depending on your karma. It's not necessary that you'll be born in the same country or the same place. That is why they say do whatever you want to do in this birth. Don't wait because you can't take a chance. It is like as uncertain as changing your job. You don't know what is in store for you. It may be good, it may be bad, but how do you know? So the subtle body has to depend on the cosmic will, the Ishvara's Icha, that depends on your karma. And depending on your karma, the time, the place, Jati, Ayu. Jati means the species in which you are born, Raj Yoga says. Ayu means the duration of your life. All these things are decided by your karma. Okay?
Okay, Swami, thanks. One last question, can I ask?
Yes.
Swamiji, this question is related to this lecture as well as your lecture on Ma last time.
Yes.
I wanted to understand about sensitivity and control because those are what we discussed here, as well as in Ma's life. We see that she was very sensitive, but still she had great control over her emotions and mental state and everything.
Yes.
So,
You should not say sensitive. She was empathetic. You see, when we say sensitive, it is a negative type of nature. When you say a person is sensitive, means he feels everything. Whereas when you say empathetic, means trying to feel the pain of others. So she was not sensitive in the worldly sense. She was empathetic and she could feel the pain of everybody. So ask the question now.
so now So there is a subtle difference in the sense that she's able to feel the pain and sufferings of everyone. Still, she's able to go to the higher consciousness and have control over how she reacts and how she expresses herself. This is
Oh,
something.
yeah, that is possible because 1 minute. Just a minute. Somebody is trying. There are so many. Uh, okay. I just asked the question again. There was some problem with the connection here, and somebody is trying to share the, which I have to stop. Yes, please ask the question. Well, yes, definitely she had more control. That is the reason why she had more control, is that she being Prakriti, Parama Prakriti herself, she was firmly established in the knowledge of Brahman. See, they are not ordinary people like us. They don't have to struggle. They are born with a specific mission in life. They the control which they show is so natural with them that she herself once said that I don't know what lack of peace is. I don't know what lack of joy or depression is in my life. I never saw. I mean, that was her natural state. So it did not require any effort on mother's part to control these things. It is in spite of all the empathy and sympathy she had, she never got carried away with her emotions. She was very steady. Even if you see her own life, she was very sympathetic, but she never lost her mental balance. Now, when we feel for some people whom we like, we get disturbed, we get upset, but she never lost her mental calmness. She tried to help in a very, very steady way, but at the same time, she could empathize and feel so deeply uh, about the problems and the struggles of others that she could go down to that level and help them. So I think you got an idea why it happens. Huh? She was one, she had established herself in the Purusha or the Brahman. So when a Brahmagani or a Jivanmukta or a Avatara, when they interact or when they sympathize or empathize with other people, it is not like ours. We empathize because of our emotions. We like somebody, and if we see them suffering, we feel miserable. And our control goes. So I mean, we don't have control over ourselves. We lose. We can't be in full control of ourselves. But they do it from a very high plane, and they see the God in everything, and that inspires them to help other people. Okay. Okay. So I take your leave now, Niti.
Yes, Swamiji. Thank you so much.
Okay. Namaste.
Dhanyavad Swamiji.
Yes.
No, I said Dhanyavad Swamiji.
Okay. Dhanyavad. Kaushik. Yes. Okay. Jai.
Maharaji,
Yes.
Anuradha, I just had, continuing from where you just stopped.
Yes.
I mean, mother is, of course, Brahman herself. And there's absolutely no comparison between her and people like me, for example.
Yes.
But for us to even get maybe a 0.0001% of that kind of control or dispassion,
Yes.
I mean, despite trying to meditate and reading books and obviously spending time with holy people like yourself,
Yes.
maybe there are times when I succeed and I'm a little dispassionate or what should I say, neutral about things. But most of the time, one gets a little emotional and involved, as we were just talking about. So, what is it that one can do to strengthen that part of the character which becomes neutral and dispassionate?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We definitely can't compare ourselves with these prophets and
Yes, Maharaj.
Purushas. But at the same time, you have to remember that they have come down to the to this plane and
Yes,
they
ma'am.
done their Leela for us. So there is a significance. They also exhibited emotions. They came in the same situations as we are, more or less similar situations, and then showed us. It's not that they were always, they also suffered. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna says that he used to feel pangs of suffering when somebody died or whom he loved too much. When his Akshay, his nephew, he died, he felt a pang of separation. Even he felt. Even Rama felt when Sita was taken away. So when these incarnations, they also exhibit these emotions, but they are in better control and they show us how to control it. Now, the best way for us to be able to behave in the same way, even 0.001%, as you said, 0.1%, is to read their lives and try to meditate on them. You see, there is a saying that if you meditate on a person, meditate on the life, the qualities, and the things, you imbibe those characteristics yourself. To the extent you can think about them, that is the reason why they come. Why do avatars come? Avatars come just to be a role model for us. And when we meditate on them, see, it's not enough
Yes,
if we just read them. We have to meditate and make them part of our consciousness. The higher we go, the higher we meditate on them, as through our higher levels of consciousness, like Vijnanamaya Kosha, we use our buddhi, our spiritual understanding develops. The more we identify with them, the more those qualities increase in us. So it's a gradual process, and we have to be patient. It doesn't happen all of a sudden, just by reading books. We get inspiration, no doubt, by reading books, but it's the meditation. That's why when we meditate on the Ishta, we have to meditate on his qualities, on his Leela, on his actions. Then we have a chance of making it part and parcel of our lives. Okay?
yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So I take your leave now. Huh?
Yes,
Jai
Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Namaste.
Namaste. Jai Ma.
Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. Jai Thakur.